did the U.S. military sacrifice up to 9 aircraft, including 2 C-130S and multiple drones to extract one downed F-15 weapons officer. Forget the superhero narratives being pushed by mainstream media because we are diving deep into the raw operational facts of this mission. Let us break down what might genuinely be the absolute most chaotic and expensive combat search and rescue operation of the 21st century. On Friday, April 3rd at roughly 7 in the morning local time over southwestern Iran, an F-15E Strike Eagle took an enemy missile hit. In the terrifying seconds that followed, that direct strike the pilot and the weapons officer ejected into a highly hostile combat zone. The two airmen drifted apart after deploying their parachutes while carrying them to different locations in the rugged terrain of Khuzestan. That crucial separation, the exact moment the harsh wind took two descending parachutes in slightly different directions, changed everything. The media is selling you a Hollywood script about a lone American colonel surviving easily, but OSINT analysts suggest a much darker reality. Today, we are finally stripping away the fake fairy tales to look at the actual blood and burnt titanium left in the cold Iranian mountains. We are analyzing this as a tactical after-action report to expose the brutal truth behind surviving behind enemy lines with a huge bounty. An injured U.S. Air Force colonel sat alone on a rocky mountain with a massive bounty on his head while the entire IRGC force began moving. He was bleeding and facing catastrophic odds while sitting in an extremely denied airspace where any normal rescue protocol was impossible. This was not a simple helicopter extraction, but a massive logistical nightmare playing out inside one of the most heavily defended areas. Executing a complex CSAR package in this completely non-permissive environment required risking hundreds of elite operators for one man. If we pull up the satellite telemetry data and visual map coordinates, you can see exactly where the F-15 hit the ground. The wreckage debris trail, scattered across the rocky mountainous region near Lai, created a massive visual signature. The absolute first rule of advanced survival training dictates that an aviator must immediately abandon the crash basin, burning aviation fuel and shattered metal. Provide the enemy with a perfectly clear starting point for their search grids. Bypassing the predictable valley routes, the downed weapons officer ascended to a concealed hide position among the rocks. Operating deep inside the Iranian A-2AD umbrella changes the entire calculus of air support and extraction operations. Their anti-access and area denial network utilizes dense, overlapping radar systems designed to obliterate any intruders. Punching a hole through that sophisticated defensive web transforms a standard recovery into a massive tactical gamble. Down in the valleys below the crash site, heavily armed Iranian ground forces were already mobilizing to hunt the survivor. State media networks aggressively broadcasted a massive financial reward, while urging local civilians to shoot on sight. All the while, he was being continuously overwatched by high-altitude MQ-9 Reaper drones, keeping any pursuers at a distance. The hostile mountain terrain offered zero natural advantages for a swift helicopter extraction under heavy enemy fire. This extremely dangerous geographic reality forced the Pentagon to rethink their traditional air cavalry rescue doctrines. Every single minute spent waiting for an extraction package increased the probability of catastrophic asset destruction. Local military commanders deployed quick reaction units along all major access roads to completely seal off the mountains. The sheer verticality of the surrounding peaks created a geographic bowl that severely restricted low-altitude flight paths. Analyzing this specific topographical nightmare explains exactly why the upcoming rescue mission required such heavy armor. This was a deadly chess match played across a highly restrictive environment, where a single mistake meant absolute failure. When the crew ejected, they switched to a vital device called the Combat Survivor Evader Locator, built specifically by Boeing. This advanced tactical radio attaches directly to the pilot's survival vest and effortlessly survives the violent ejection sequence. Iranian electronic warfare systems constantly scan the radio spectrum, hoping to detect and triangulate traditional voice transmissions. Transmitting a standard voice message would instantly reveal his precise coordinates to the heavily armed enemy patrols searching nearby. Instead of voice, the beacon sends incredibly short encrypted data bursts containing location updates and highly critical status codes. These frequency-hopping signals simply look like random background noise to the sophisticated Iranian electronic surveillance networks. This hidden satellite link feeds real-time telemetry data to the tactical rescue teams waiting nervously on the ground and in the air. The injured colonel restricted his beacon usage because enemy forces could technically detect the signal if left transmitting constantly. That specific operational discipline demonstrates advanced survival training, where knowing when to stay completely silent saves your life. Every second the beacon transmits gives the hostile electronic warfare units another dangerous opportunity to locate the exact source. Making that brutal calculation alone while injured in a cold rock crevice at high altitude requires immense psychological endurance. He only transmitted data when the extreme risk of detection was lower than the terrifying cost of remaining hidden in the dark mountain. His exact location within meters was being fed directly to every single element of the massive military rescue package building nearby. At that moment, he could stay completely hidden and still remain fully connected to the entire U.S. military operational command structure. Executing a CSAR package in a completely non-permissive environment is an absolute logistical nightmare, requiring absolute precision. We must examine the severe asymmetric cost of the no man left behind doctrine during modern near-peer military conflicts. Prior to locating the weapons officer, the Central Intelligence Agency launched a massive underground deception campaign. They actively spread false rumors through local back channels that American forces had already rescued the downed airmen. Human intelligence networks told the Iranian military command that a ground convoy was actively moving toward the border. Iranian search teams and elite units immediately turned away from the mountain and rushed toward the fake convoy routes. This brilliant psychological misdirection bought the hiding colonel the desperate hours he needed to survive the cold night. Simultaneously, a massive quick reaction force was quietly assembling at a staging base just outside the hostile territory. The hasty task force included the Army Special Operations Aviation Regiment and legendary Navy SEAL Team 6 operators. Planners willingly risked the lives of hundreds of highly trained special operators to extract just one single individual. Forcing the U.S. military to deploy such a massive rescue package perfectly illustrates the incredible cost of this mission. Once the invisible intelligence network confirmed the exact location coordinates, they passed the data to the White House. The president officially ordered an immediate and overwhelming military rescue operation to bring the stranded officer home. Everything was finally in place to launch the most dangerous extraction flight directly into the teeth of enemy air defenses. The extraction package finally launched into the dark sky, bringing overwhelming firepower to the Iranian mountains. A specialized commando unit breached the hostile airspace with an unprecedented volume of heavy continuous air cover. Deadly MQ-9 Reaper drones established an impenetrable close protection perimeter directly around the isolated survivor. Heavily armed, A-10 Warthog squadrons arrived shortly after to provide devastating overwatch capabilities from above. Over 100 elite operators from SEAL Team 6 and the legendary 160th SOAR flew deep into the dangerous valley. Planners committed over 100 elite ground combatants to breach the highly fortified sovereign Iranian territory. The lethal Reaper crews aggressively engaged multiple enemy targets moving within 3 kilometers of the hiding airmen. These high-altitude unmanned vehicles identified and cleared individual troop movements in the freezing black darkness. Hostile Iranian convoys attempting to reach the extraction zone were violently struck by precision-guided munitions. Hellfire missiles obliterated heavily armored military vehicles driving up the winding mountain roads towards the peak. American forces literally slaughtered incoming Revolutionary Guard units to keep them away from the vulnerable colonel. The colonel lay bleeding in his rocky crevice while listening to the terrifying sound of heavy aircraft circling above. He simultaneously heard the violent destruction of Iranian infantry forces happening just a few thousand feet below him. Massive fighter jets conducted continuous kinetic strikes against ground units during the critical extraction window. Local hospitals quickly filled with massive numbers of dead and severely wounded Revolutionary Guard and Basij forces. Special operators willingly put their own lives on the line and engaged in a massive firefight at the extraction site. This was absolutely not a clean, silent extraction, but a brutal and chaotic battle fought in the deep mountains of Iran. Deploying this immense level of military force clearly highlights the extreme strategic risks of modern combat rescue. They practically declared a localized war within a sovereign nation just to fulfill the sacred promise to their pilot. While the air support rained absolute hellfire down the mountain, the ground extraction team prepared their final move. Naval aviators and combat controllers worked seamlessly together to coordinate the extremely complex airspace above them. We are talking about a full-spectrum military assault launched entirely to prevent a single hostage situation in Tehran. The sheer volume of ordnance dropped during those terrifying hours turned the rocky landscape into a literal war zone. Iranian military leaders were likely stunned by the aggressive ferocity of the sudden American aerial bombardment there. Every single enemy soldier attempting to climb that ridge was instantly neutralized by the relentless drone overwatch. A highly maneuverable MH-6 Little Bird helicopter flew directly to the jagged mountaintop to extract the wounded airmen. Special Operations Forces established a temporary staging base on Iranian soil by landing two massive C-130 cargo planes. The critical problem started when the heavy nose gears of both transport aircraft sank deeply into the soft mountain dirt. Landing such incredibly heavy aircraft in an unprepared desert environment carries an extraordinarily high operational risk. We are not just talking about damaged landing gear, because reports point to multiple complete military aircraft hull losses. The staggering casualty list includes the original F-15 fighter jet and an A-10 Warthog shot down during the long overwatch. It also includes multiple MQ-9 Reaper drones and several helicopters that were severely damaged during the violent battle. Special operations protocols dictate that any grounded airframe must be immediately scuttled and sanitized to prevent technology transfer. With daylight rapidly approaching, the U.S. Air Force used multiple precision bombs to completely destroy their abandoned planes. Two burning C-130 aircraft were intentionally left behind in the dirt to ensure that no classified military tech was captured. The terrifying reality was that over 100 elite American personnel were now temporarily stranded on the hostile ground. They specifically needed the nimble Little Bird to pluck him from the extreme elevation where heavier aircraft could not operate. Leaving so many advanced aircraft shattered across the hostile desert floor represents a massive intelligence failure for them. The true miracle was not just the survival, but the massive QRF exfiltration happening entirely under the enemy radar. After a few terrifying hours, commanders had to quickly bring in 3 AFSOC planes to fly out the stranded operators. They desperately needed to execute this massive tactical retreat before the dangerous morning daylight exposed them all. Heavily armed Iranian infantry units that had somehow survived the fierce airstrikes were still operating in the area. 3 heavy transport aircraft managed to successfully land on the rough dirt strip to rescue the trapped military personnel. Over 100 elite Special Forces operators and the rescued colonel scrambled aboard the planes under extreme pressure. This incredibly bloody clash between American air power and Iranian ground troops left permanent scars on the harsh landscape. The heavily loaded extraction flight finally managed to lift off safely from the contested combat zone just in time. Pulling off this highly complex exfiltration maneuver required absolute coordination among all the desperate combat elements. They successfully fled the hostile sovereign airspace, leaving behind a massive trail of burning wreckage and dead soldiers. Escaping from such a deeply compromised tactical position perfectly highlights the raw capability of these special operations. The entire extraction mission cost American taxpayers approximately $300 million in destroyed assets. They successfully brought the wounded weapons officer home to safety, but left an incredibly expensive trail behind. The stranded aviator is currently recovering safely at home after surviving one of the most perilous rescue missions. 2 burning cargo planes still violently mark the remote spot where America forcefully reached in to grab its lost asset. This historic military engagement forces us to deeply evaluate the severe consequences of modern combat rescue missions. We traded millions in advanced hardware and risked hundreds of elite operators to pull one colonel out of hostile territory. In a near-peer conflict is the no man left behind doctrine, a dangerous tactical weakness that smart enemies can exploit. Or is this extreme dedication the ultimate psychological advantage that truly defines the unmatched U.S. military forces? Drop your tactical assessment about this incredibly expensive rescue operation in the comments section directly down below.